Re-
So, welcome back to the Fat Doctor podcast. It's been like 8 months, I think, since I last did this, and I'm really excited to be restarting. And this time, I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently, or maybe kind of the same. Maybe this is just an evolution of the same podcast. But one of the things I've been working on over the last few months is showing up imperfectly, not feeling like I have to be, you know, sort of perfectly edited with the absolute perfect sound quality and no mistakes and no loud breath sounds like this and anything like that. Like I've always been trying to be slick, and I've decided I'm going to go the other way now because I'm not a particularly perfect person, and I'm also not one of these people that is very interested in other perfect people. So I am going to do this all in one go without doing any editing. And I'm going to make mistakes, and I would apologize, but I'm not going to. This is the first, I hope, of many episodes where I'm just going to talk about things that are important to you. And I should say that I am opening up the floor for any questions. If you have something that you'd like me to discuss in upcoming episodes of this podcast, then let me know. Email me, contact me through the website. If you are already a contact, get in touch. If you're part of my incredible online community, you've already given me some fantastic ideas. So that's the waiting room, folks. I'll be talking about that later. But today I am going to be talking about a little incident that occurred late last night. Well, no, by the time I release this, it will be a few nights ago, but it's late last night when I'm recording it. So without further ado, welcome to series 4, season 4, season, I'm not sure, one of the two, of the Fat Doctor podcast. All right, so basically I was invited at around 5 p.m. on a Sunday. I received a phone call and I was invited to be a guest on LBC radio. Now, for those who don't know, LBC stands for Leading Britain's Conversation. And it's a pretty sensationalist right-wing talk radio station. Lots of their, not all of them, some of them are great, but a lot of their presenters are, yeah, pretty crappy, really, and have very crappy opinions as far as I'm concerned. And I have been on it before a few times, and every single time has, been really unpleasant because the people who ask the questions are not interested in facts and opinions. They're just interested in creating a bit of a sensationalist scandal. Not quite scandal, scandal's too big a word, but they're just trying to goad people into saying things so that they can get ratings. And so I usually say no. I get offered so many times. People phone me up. I don't know how they've got my number. I think it's because I said yes once and have lived to regret it. And normally I say no, but I was asked if I would talk about a book that's just come out by Kate Mann called, oh, I should have written this down, Unshrinkable. Oh dear. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Apologies, Kate. Um, and it's brilliant. The premise of the radio talk show bit was should fat people be trying to shrink themselves, or should the world start growing to accommodate them? That was basically the angle. And I was like, oh, actually, I quite like this. This sounds quite good. And the producer, seemed to imply that it wasn't a particularly controversial issue as far as I was concerned, because I agreed. Normally, I don't agree with whatever people are saying, but in this case, I was like, yeah, 100% agree with that. So yes, we should be accommodating fat people. Let's do it. And so basically what happens is they bring you on a few minutes beforehand, make you do a sound check and everything, and then you listen to the radio presenter giving their little talk, and then you are live. And whilst the presenter was giving her talk, I realized I'd been completely set up once again. And I was talking with a radio presenter who does, let's remember, the 7 to 10 p.m. on a Sunday slot. So not exactly the most popular radio presenter. Her name is Rachel Johnson, and I'm just going to read out some things I found out about her from her Wikipedia page. She is a British journalist, TV presenter, and author. She was on the 21st series of Celebrity Big Brother in 2018 and evicted second. You can't see this if you're listening to the podcast, but I am smirking. She is the younger sister of Boris Johnson. And for those of you who don't know who Boris Johnson is, where on earth have you been? So, I mean, we should stop there, right? She's the younger sister of Boris Johnson. That should be enough. But I'll go on. She's private school educated, obviously. And, you know, born to two rich and sort of upper class parents. There's nothing wrong with being private school educated, but you know, just to point out that that's been her lived experience. Wealthy, privileged, white, private school educated, did a degree, I believe, in journalism, and then became, well, it says she's a reporter. She's basically a columnist, which is slightly different from a reporter, right? She just puts her opinion down on a piece of paper. She doesn't have to fact check or anything. She's worked primarily for right-wing papers like the Daily Telegraph, and was then editor of The Lady. Again, I'm smirking. So I think we have a bit of an idea of what Rachel Johnson is like now from her little bio. And if you want to learn more, you could just go Wikipedia her like I did. Anyway, I say all this to say that she is absolutely not an expert in any way, shape, or form. She is a columnist. I'm not going to say journalist, a columnist, TV presenter. She's often asked to go on like panel discussions, usually to make a bit of a stink. And you know, she's been the editor of The Lady. That's where she's coming from. And in the 3 minutes that I was waiting to go live on air, she opened her mouth, and I went from like thinking, oh, maybe this will be a decent piece, to thinking, what the actual fuck? Not what have I got myself into, because I've got myself into these spots many a time before, but what the actual, I mean, I instantly loathed her. Now, to be fair, I didn't know who she was. I Googled her afterwards. So I think if I'd known this was Boris Johnson's little sister, I probably would have said other things, and they probably wouldn't have been very nice. So I'm glad I didn't know. But she, oh God, she was so boring. If nothing else, she was so boring and unoriginal. You know, these people, these hacks whose job it is just to stir up a little bit of shit. They always go for the same old boring tropes. They never come up with anything interesting. They have nothing original or interesting to say, because, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. But these are some of the tropes that she brought into 3 minutes. Well, a 3-minute introduction, and then probably like a 5-10 minutes conversation. And I say conversation, I felt like it was a row. I was unimpressed, and I made that very clear in the way that I behaved. And I make no apologies for that. Anyway, so some of the tropes, I've written them down. For those who are not watching, because I'm recording this, and so you'll be able to watch this on YouTube if you prefer to watch a video. But if you're just listening, you won't know. But I have like a little like notebook with handwritten notes, because I'm a professional. And you can't read them because I'm a doctor, and therefore my handwriting sucks, but I can read them. So I'm going to read some of them out and talk about them. So first of all, she used the ugly O word a lot, of course, and the words, those kind of like dog whistles, pandemic, crisis, you know, war, all these kind of horrible dog whistles that make us feel like crap. You know, because when you're told that your body is a pandemic, right? It's not a virus, it's not a bacteria, it's not a you know, it's not a fungus, it's your body. Your body itself is a pandemic. It's a plague on the entire planet. When you're told things like that, of course it's going to evoke anger, and you know, and it makes you feel massively disrespected. But it's a dog whistle. They use these words deliberately. It is all part of a campaign to shame and humiliate fat people over and over and over again, whether she's aware of it or not. I think at one point in time I said, what was the word I used? Oh, I can't remember now. but it was something like, it wasn't patronize. It'll come to me in a second, but I basically accused her of treating fat people poorly. She's like, I never did that. I'm like, really? You didn't? You want to listen back to the words used? How would you like it if I was like, oh, the war on rich upper class twats, which she is, and there is a war on rich upper class twats, and I'm all for eating the rich, but you know, she would find that very offensive, and she'd get really upset about it. How dare you pick on me? But it's not the same when she uses words like, you know, obesity pandemic. That's fine. That's okay. She was literally reading stats from the WHO fact sheet. And not even like the website, just the fact sheet. You know, they're like distilled version. And I hate that WHO fact sheet because it's full of crap. And again, it's just part of a campaign, a strategy to blame the individual, to talk absolute shit. There's no evidence behind the stuff that she was saying, but she said it anyway. There was a lot of kind of like, you know, just look at pictures from 1975. People weren't fat then. Look at them now. I mean, yes, people weren't fat in 1975 because they weren't in the bloody photo, and they're still not in the photo, in case you hadn't noticed. But this idea that we're getting fatter and fatter and fatter, there is some degree of truth to it in that sort of, I think it was the late 80s, beginning early 90s. I think as the society as a whole, certainly in the global north, there was an uptrend in weight. And I think on average, it was about 3 to 5 kilograms, something like that. But there was definitely an uptrend in weight, and there was a notable uptrend in fat people. And by fat people, I mean, like, you know, really actual fat people, not people who think they're fat. That's not, I'm not disputing that. And then it kind of leveled out, and it's been pretty much the same ever since. But of course, in during that time between the 1970s and now, we have continuously updated our definition of the O word, right? It's completely changed since the 1970s. And it's all based on BMI now, which is a completely useless and inaccurate measure of health with racist and disgusting historical context. It was created to begin with by eugenicists. So I won't go into that. Most of you know this, and if not, I'll do another podcast about it. But yeah, I mean, this kind of like fear mongering about the numbers is actually a manipulation of the statistics. And there's got to be a reason why the WHO is doing it, but I won't get into it. She talks about how being fat was preventable, which we know is not. And when I came at her with evidence about genetics, she disputed it because, of course, what would I know? She talked about parental responsibility. You know, it's a parent's job to stop their child from getting fat. And of course, she talks about, you know, fatness in children. You have to bring children into it. Why fat shame adults when you can fat shame children and adults? Of course. So she talked about parental responsibility. She actually put herself in there, was like, you know, I had a responsibility to my children to make sure that they ate healthily. I didn't just let them eat whatever they wanted. And then she questioned whether that was the right thing or not. And I was just like, well, I don't know. Are you going to be paying for your children's therapy bills, you know, when they get older? I don't know. I imagine her children are old now. And if they happen to be listening, do you know what? I'll do you a freebie. Feel free to contact me anytime. Then, okay, 2 things she did that made that. This is when I basically lost the plot. The first thing was that she demonized. Oh, that's the word I used. Demonized. She demonized the fat. I gave an example of a fat person in a mobility scooter, and oh my goodness, it really boils my piss when people do this, because not only are you demonizing fat people, but you're also demonizing disabled people, and that kind of intersection between fat phobia and ableism, very much. Well, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening can relate. It's disgusting. It's disgusting because you can really hear the sort of, well, disgust and kind of judgment and assumptions and the nastiness, the toxicity when people talk about a fat person in a mobility scooter. And I happen to know lots of fat people who use mobility aids. Wonderful people. And the level of hostility they encounter, you know, as a fat person walking through the world, you encounter a lot of hostility. But if you're a fat disabled person walking through the world, my goodness, it's like, I wouldn't even say it's twice as much. I imagine it's 10 times as much. You know, I imagine the two intersect exponentially. because people are just nasty. Just nasty. And by the way, when you see a thin person using mobility aids, that hey, I'm not suggesting it's fun to be disabled if you're thin. I'm not suggesting that for 1 second. But people tend to be slightly less judgmental. Oftentimes they might be like, oh, if you see a thin person who is hobbling, say, because they're on crutches or whatever, or was having to use a wheelchair even, there's often a lot of kind of like, oh, pity is gross, like stop pitying people, that's rude, but you do tend to see that, right? There's a kind of like, oh, it's not their fault. But when you see a fat person hobbling along or on crutches or in a wheelchair or whatever, it's the automatic assumption is that's your fault. The reason you're in that wheelchair is your fault, even if the thin person and the fat person have exactly the same diagnosis. It wouldn't matter. One would be blamed, the other wouldn't. So I don't listen. I'm not trying to suggest that it's easy to be thin and disabled. I'm not disabled, nor am I thin, but I'm sure it's not. Like, I believe the thin disabled people out there who tell me how difficult it is. I'm just saying it's harder when you're fat and disabled. Multiple marginalized identities obviously make life harder. And in this case, you can just hear the venom. Like, she was just being so nasty. Ugh. She made me want to vomit. And at this point in time, I swear, I was off air and I am throwing around the worst curse words that I can think of. Like, I'm literally, I live in Scotland, right? Like, we throw around the C word on a regular basis. And the producer, the nasty producer who set this up in the first place, who blatantly baited me into getting into this conversation, was like, are you still happy to do this? You can't be swearing on the radio. I was like, excuse me, have you, I've done many radio shows. I've never sworn on the radio before. Fuck you. This is my podcast. I can swear whenever I want. Anyway, so I should have hung up. Or maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe it was okay to have a row with her, because by that point in time, literally when she put me on air and introduced me, I was just ready for a fight. And I went in there fighting. She talks about how fat people are unhappy people. That was the other thing that she did before I went on air. She talked about how fat people are unhappy. And she gave an example. I've got one fat person in my family. And then she kind of qualified that by saying, I'm not saying all fat people are unhappy, but if you can't even guess, stand up without having to sit down after a few minutes, that's just not a good way to live, is it? I don't know what to say about that. I just don't understand how people can be that nasty. Like, we're talking about human beings here, right? You get it. How could you possibly know if they're happy or not? And to assume that they're not, like, it just says everything about you, and nothing about that person. Disgusting. But like I said, same old, tired, boring, unoriginal tropes. She said a few other stupid things as well. What else did she say? She talked about how, well, as I said, she said that it's preventable. Being fat is preventable. I was like, no, it's not. It's not preventable, actually. I talked about genetics. She tried to disprove my theory, whatever. I read the papers. I know she hasn't. Just because she can quote something from a website that she, her producer looked up in the 5 minutes that I've been talking, doesn't mean she knows more than I do. But anyway, she talked about, she did the whole burden on the healthcare system, the cost of fatness. We are a burden. We are just wasting everyone else's time and money. If only we could just be thin. Ugh. Oh, and then at the end, she had to get in the bit about ultra processed food, right? Like, because she hadn't done them all. She'd missed one out. She'd missed a trope. So right before we finished, it was the ultra processed. Let's demonize ultra processed food. Are you saying that if people would stop eating ultra processed food, they wouldn't be fat? They would stop. They would still be fat. I was just like, oh my God, like, could you be any more of a stereotype? But yeah, that's what we do. We demonize ultra processed food at the moment. That's the new thing. Blame the food, don't blame the person, because the powers that be want us to start taking drugs to fix our fatness. And so we have to go from blaming the individual, which it's harder to sell drugs if we're blaming the individual, because surely the individual has a responsibility to do something about it, not just take a drug. That's the weak way out, right? Like, that's the cheat's way out. So the narrative has to change. The narrative has to evolve. It's now about blaming the sort of food and the environment. We can't really do anything about that apart from penalize the food companies, and we don't penalize the food companies. We penalize the food companies who pass on the financial penalty to their customers. So in the end, the individual does end up poorer, right? So, for example, the sugar tax that has come out as a result of penalizing sugary drinks, fizzy drinks. That's happened in the UK, and has happened, I think, in lots of other countries or lots of areas of the world. And the problem is that now you can't get a drink that isn't chock-a-block full of sweeteners. And if you can't handle sweeteners, if if you're allergic to them, or if they cause you upset your stomach, or if you just want to stay away from them because you've heard that they might not actually be as safe or quote unquote healthy as they're led, as we were led to believe, then you have no choice but to pay extra for your drinks. And they're trying to do the same thing to quote unquote processed food. So if you want to buy those things, those convenient foods that you need to exist, no, you're going to be penalized for that. And I say you need to exist. Some people depend on quote unquote processed food. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with A, their diet, or B, them. But again, I digress, and that's not what I want to talk about today. But yeah, demonizing ultra processed food, I think that's definitely a podcast episode in of itself. And that being said, there are amazing people that are talking about this. Jessica Wilson is one that springs to mind straight away. Whitney Trosser as well. Who else? Yeah, there's quite a few who are talking about the nonsense that is even the term ultra processed food, because we have no definition of what that means. It's just a term that people throw around. So go check them out. Anyway, so the question was, should we as fat people, no, should fat people be shrinking themselves? Or, since we're unshrinkable, because that's the title of the book, should society be growing and trying to accommodate fat people by making bigger hospital beds, bigger plane seats, bigger clothing, etc., etc.? I hope that those of you who follow me know what my opinion is, what I believe the answer is. But just in case you aren't, here's my opinion. It's not something I was able to get across particularly articulately, that I was able to articulate properly yesterday because I was so angry. But I will say it now. Until there is a safe and effective way to shrink myself long term, where the benefits outweigh the risks, then fat people are here to stay. And the world has to accommodate us. Because if you're fat and there is no safe and effective way to shrink yourself, not in a way where the risks outweigh the benefits anyway, then by refusing to accommodate us, you are discriminating against us, right? People often say, well, being fat is a choice. Being fat is not a choice. And even if it were, we have the right to make that choice. But if being fat isn't a choice, or at least shrinking yourself is not an option, and that's the point that the book is trying to make, right? Unshrinkable. I've not read the book yet, by the way. But it's called Unshrinkable, and that's what the conversation was about. So I'm hoping that's the point that Kate Mann's trying to make. I'm sure it is. We're unshrinkable. We're unshrinkable because there isn't a safe and effective way to lose weight in the long term. That any option that we have available to us, the risks outweigh the benefits. And so if there is no way to shrink ourselves, and that therefore we will remain fat no matter what, then the world has to stop discriminating against us. The world has to stop saying shrink yourself or you can't have that. Because it's the equivalent of saying stop being disabled or you can't have that. That's not how it works. It's not. It's the equivalent of saying stop believing in a certain religion, or stop being trans, or stop being gay. I know a lot of people did that for a really long time. Like, even when I was a teenager and I came out in 1994, people were still of the belief, and people are still of the belief even, that you should just stop being gay. It's a lifestyle choice. Just stop being queer. You don't need to be queer. If you want to have the same rights and liberties as everyone else, you need to stop being queer. No, that's not how the world should work. I know it's how the world does work, but it's not how the world should work. And we fought and we fought and we fought until somebody somewhere said you can have the same rights as heterosexual people, for the most part. Although they're trying to walk those rights back in many places, and in some places you still don't have the same rights. But you know what I'm talking about, right? It's the same thing for disabled people. Disabled people have been fighting for decades, centuries, saying we're not going anywhere. Like, we are disabled. That's the end of it. You have to accommodate us. And the world is like, well, make us, what are you going to do? And it's just not right. And disabled people continue to fight today for justice. And, as a trans person, I mean, I have been told repeatedly to stop being trans. Just stop. Like, I can stop it. But if you want to have the same rights as cisgender people, you just need to stop being trans, is not the answer. And it is the same thing for fat people. If you want to have the same rights as thin people, shrink yourself. It's not the answer. It's not acceptable. It is not right. It is not fair. It is not just. And I am done arguing this point with people. Until you can find me proof that there is a safe and effective way to shrink myself in the long term where the benefits outweigh the risks, I'm not going anywhere. It is not my job to prove to you that I'm unshrinkable. It is your job to prove to me that I am shrinkable. You need to provide the evidence. It doesn't exist. And until it does, I'm done arguing with you. And that's where I'm at this stage. That's what I wanted to have said, but was too mad to do it. And that kind of brings me on to my next point. And I think so basically I was rude. I was hostile. I was argumentative. I wasn't professional. I wasn't calm. I didn't keep my cool. First time I ever went on, well, it wasn't radio, it was actually national television, was 2021, I think. Yeah, beginning of 21. And it was on a program called This Morning, with disgraced presenter Philip Schofield and the other one, Holly Willoughby. Willoughby? Oh gosh, I've said that now. I don't even know if that's her name. But anyway, it was Phil and Holly. Sounds right. And I I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew it was going to be unpleasant. And I had a really good friend who was sort of like coaching me how to handle this conversation. And was like, he said, keep calm, smile, be nice, be approachable. People, give off the right vibes. Don't be too confrontational. Don't do this, don't do that. Be this, do that. I tried really hard. I don't know if I succeeded. Caused a lot of drama on the day. People still talk about it. People are still making videos about it, which, come on, it is like 3 years ago now. Calm down. But yeah, I remember the pressure of trying to show up as perfectly as I possibly could, as professional and as respectable as I possibly could. And I have been doing that ever since, for the most part. I know that sometimes I'm a bit disgraceful, but when I'm on TV or radio or whatever, I try to be professional. And I really wasn't professional. I don't know what it was. I can't even blame the full moon because it's not even remotely full anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm tired. I'm done. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of having to deal with these people. They know less than I do about this topic. I'm not suggesting I know everything. I don't, absolutely not. But about this topic, I have a pretty educated opinion. I have done a lot of research. I have actually read the papers rather than the WHO fact sheets. And so I don't see why I have to defend myself and be respectable when this person is not being respectful or respectable. If you're going to demonize fat people, I'm going to be rude to you. And I realized that during the interview, and I came away, and the first thing was, that washed over me was shame. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Oh, worrying about the repercussions. And this is actually a hang up, I realized, that comes from 20 years of medicine and beyond, because obviously it was medical school beyond that. Before that, I mean, I joined the NHS when I was 18 years old, and I'm 43 turning 44. So yeah, I've been in healthcare for a long time, and we are taught to be professional and respectable at all times. because failing to do so is grounds for a lawsuit. That's the reality. You can get in trouble. More important, you can get sued. We're told to practice medicine in a sort of defensively. Be prepared to get sued at all times, so that when they try to sue you, you're prepared and you've got your notes and you've done this and you've done that. So we spend a lot of time and energy trying to protect ourselves and trying to appear professional and trying to appear respectable. But at the same time, we get away with so much shit. Because I know the majority of people listening to me today have gone and seen at least one doctor who treated them like garbage, who was rude, disrespectful, made fun of them, humiliated them, shamed them, stigmatized them, traumatized them, possibly even assaulted them. And again, that's another conversation, perhaps another podcast, and got away with it because that's the culture. There's a difference between acting professional and being a professional. There's a difference between appearing respectable and actually being a respectable person. And I am done with professionalism and respectability politics. I really am. Fuck that noise. I am done with it because it's so hypocritical. And I would rather show up authentically and imperfectly and be a bit embarrassed and a bit ashamed about the way that I conducted myself, but then get over it pretty quickly and carry on, than I would look good, but be a fake. I've spent a lot of time being a fake. I realize that. And I say it quite often. I have a lot of red in my ledger. Yes, I stole that from the Avengers, but I have a lot of red in my ledger because I spent a long time walking the walk, talking the talk, trying to be the quote unquote professional to prevent lawsuits and complaints, which I successfully did 20 years. But what happened was I sold my soul, really. And in a way, I was a hypocrite because I wasn't the one that was shaming and humiliating my patients for the most part. I'm sure I have done. I certainly wasn't assaulting patients, but I wasn't doing anything about it either. I wasn't stopping my colleagues. I wasn't standing up to them. I was complicit, and being complicit is just as bad as doing it, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I've got a lot of red in my ledger. I don't know. I'm not a big believer in kind of like, it's 2024, let's make New Year's resolutions. First of all, for me, we're in the middle of winter. Things don't change for another 3 months. We got to get to the end of Pisces, and then we'll talk about changes. But for those of you who are into astrology, I am like very new to astrology, but I'm learning. And one of the things I know is about to happen in a couple of weeks' time is Pluto is moving into Aquarius, leaving Capricorn and moving into Aquarius, and it has kind of did for a little bit last year and is now like moving in for real. And we got what, 15 years, over a decade, 15 years, I think it is, of this coming up. And we are going to be burning down a whole lot of shit over the next few years. The world is going to have to change and evolve. And we have to either dig our heels in and say, no, I want to stick with the old ways, or we just jump on board and we go with it. And we embrace the changes, and we embrace the passion and the fire and the movement. And I'm all for embracing the change. And yeah, I think part of that has to be letting go of certain things. And one thing that I'm letting go of is being a respectable professional person. I am showing up unfiltered, unedited, and if you fuck with me, I will fuck with you back. I will clap back, and there's nothing you can do about it. I am not going to be positive all the time because the world is burning and there's nothing to be positive about. I am not going to defend myself because I've got nothing to defend. My right to exist is my right to exist. My right to be fat is my right to be fat. And if you've got a problem with that, fuck off. If the evidence supports what I say and you choose to ignore the evidence, that's your problem, not my problem. I am not here to convince you. I put my resources out there. The evidence is out there. Go fucking Google it yourself. But even if you don't, like, even if you choose not to believe it, that's your problem. It's not my job to make you believe me. It's not my job to convince you that I have a right to exist. It's not. Um, Professionalism and respectability can go in the bin. And all these tired, boring, unoriginal tropes that we come across and we come against all the time. Yeah, I'm not going to pretend they're pleasant. They're not. I'm not going to pretend that this is going to be fun. Yeah, let's just embrace the movement and move on. No, it's going to come at a great cost, emotionally, physically, financially, environmentally, culturally, socially. It's going to come at a great cost. I'm aware of that. I'm not I'm not going into this, with a positive attitude. I'm going into this bitter and angry and ready to fight anyone that gets in my way. That's the attitude I'm carrying into the next few years, with a bit of a positivity, I think. But yeah, I'm done. The burden of proof is not mine. You know, I've done the research. I know I'm right. I'm willing to stay. I have staked my career on it. My career in medicine is over. That's fine. It's gone. I'm done with that. But I will not stop doing what I'm doing. And if you want to join me, then please do. There are so many ways that you can engage with me and with my work. I am trying to provide as many free resources as possible. So this podcast, one of the reasons I'm bringing it back. Also, I have a mailing list, and for a long time I didn't know what to do with that mailing list. It was a bit kind of like, how do I, like, what's, I mean, and I for a while I got caught up in what you're supposed to do, like I listened to all the people out there that told me what I was supposed to do, and I tried all of that and nothing fit. And so with my mailing list now, the way it goes is every day you can ask me a question. You just reply to my email and ask me a question. And ideally, I will reply and say, cool, I'll get back to you. Or it'll or whatever. And sometimes I won't reply, but I will try and include that question into into the next available email. And every day I'm going to be sending out an email, which is kind of like, think of it as a, like a Dear Abby column, or when you write in and ask for advice, Dear Abby. I don't know. I've heard the term Dear Abby. I think that's an American term, but I'm going to use it. But that, Dear Abby meets Dear Abby meets kind of WebMD or Dr. Google meets radical fat liberationist. Kind of cross between the three. So I can answer medical questions. I can answer any question that you can think of, really. Ask me anything. Just ask me anything, and I will try and include it in my emails. And every day, if you want to, obviously you don't have to read the emails, but if you're subscribed to the mailing list, you can just open up the email and you can see my response to whatever question, and you can ask your own. Same goes with this podcast. If you've got something that you want me to tackle on a podcast, then please ask me. As I said, if you're a member of my membership, my sort of like my exclusive online membership community, then you can just message me, or you can contact me through the website. Try not to contact me through my socials, because to be honest, I get so much trolling on a lot of my social media accounts that I don't always check my messages, because I don't want to deal when I don't want to deal with the hate. I just ignore my messages. Instagram's pretty cool. I have to say, I'm not getting trolled much there, but I've probably just jinxed it. Facebook's hideous. Apparently I have been added to a hate list on Facebook, and there are some people saying that I need to do something about that, like clean up all the trolling messages, address them. I'm not doing that. I don't see why I should be punished for people hating on me. Like, I don't, if you don't like comments, don't read the comments. I am not going to go through them individually myself to make other people feel happy, right? And if that makes you uncomfortable, don't follow me. But yeah, Instagram seems pretty safe. TikTok is TikTok, but I might be on there, I might not. It's kind of sporadic at the moment. So you can find me on my socials as well, and I obviously will continue to provide free content through there. I've also got some freebies on my website. If you haven't looked already, if you go to my website, fatdoctor.co.uk, and you navigate to the bit that says freebies, I have a 5-day email course where I talk about sort of advocating for yourself at the doctor's office. We also have a free online webinar, like a recording that you can watch And I'll probably be adding more and more resources as well. Trying to get the hashtag No Way campaign off the ground. Hey, you never know. Maybe this year will be my year. And yeah, my online community is a paid membership, and some people have a real problem with that, and that's fine. It's paid membership for two reasons. Number one, I have to make money because I have had to give up my career in medicine because it's not possible for me to do what I'm doing now and have a career in medicine. Now that's my choice, and I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. But if you like what I'm doing and you are getting something out of it, then I kind of need you to support me financially. Now, some of you can't. I get that. I don't want you to support me financially. If you really can't afford it, then I don't want you to do it. But for those of you who can, and I know a lot of people are like, well, I can't, but some, there's the I can't, and then there's I can't. So if you're the I can't people, fine, don't. And I am trying to do scholarship places and things like that so that people, to address the injustice, because the more marginalized identities you hold, the less likely you are to be able to afford my services. I am well aware of that. So I'm trying to combat that. And if you want to know more about my business practices, I have written all about it again on my website. Go and check it out. Go and see how I operate, what I believe in, how I choose to conduct myself. But for those who are like, can I, can't I, for £15 a month, and you get 2 weeks free, a 2-week free trial, so you don't have to buy straight away. You can check it out first. And for £15 a month, you can join my online community, and what you get out of that is a fantastic, small, passionate community who support each other. And I support them and they support me, and it's amazing and it's lovely and it's quite intimate. And we don't just talk about weight stigma, we talk about everything. Like, we've had conversations about remodeling bathrooms, we've had conversations about New Year's resolutions, we've had conversations about going to the doctor. Whenever people have a question, they ask it and other people sort of chime in. It's great. It's a fantastic community. It's held on Discord. Very few people are familiar with Discord, myself included, but it's pretty self-explanatory, and it's a really great way to host community because I have different chats, sort of different areas for people to join in and not join in. So there might be things that you don't want to have to deal with, you just avoid them. And there might be things that you really want to deal with and you just go into there. So yeah, that's my Discord community. It's called The Waiting Room because I'm punny. And you will have heard me talking about it. I've been talking about it quite a while. I'd encourage you, if you're interested, just to have a little look. As I said, 14-day free trial. So you've got nothing to lose. And if you want to buy membership for the entire year, then you get 2 months for free. I think we're going to end it there. Yeah, I don't know how long it's been, but it feels long enough. I'm going to try and do one every week. Next week, I already have a question, but as I said, ask me anything. And don't forget to sign up to my mailing list, and don't forget the free resources. Don't forget the waiting room, and I'll see you next week.